this is Enki XIII. If my computer will act right here. So we're just getting to the part where they met on Earth. Enki, in charge of the ditch and the dike he placed, a boundary for the marshes to fashion, for the waters that from heaven rain a gathered place to make. Thus were the waters below from the waters above separated, marsh waters from sweet waters asunder were set. And it was the evening, and it was morning, and the second day of earth it was, when the morning announced the heroes their assigned tasks were performing, with the Lalut Ei to replace the grass of trees his steps directed. All that in the orchid grows, herbs and fruits after their kind to examine. To Isamud, his vizier, Ei question was addressing. What is this plant? What is that plant? Him he was asking. Isamud, one of much learning, food that grows well he could distinguish. He tore a fruit for Ei. A honey plant it is, to Ei he was saying. One fruit he himself ate, one fruit Ei was eating. Of food that grows by its good distinguished. Ei the hero guru put in charge. Thus were the heroes water and food provided. Saturated they were not. And it was evening and it was morning, and the third day on earth it was. On the fourth day the wind ceased blowing, and the chariot by ways were not disturbed. Let tools from the chariot be brought, let abodes from the encampment be built, Ei thus commanded. Kulu, in charge of the mold and the brick, Ei appointed. From the clay bricks to fashion, Masamu to lay foundations he directed, dwelling abodes to erect. All day the sun was shining, the great light by day it was. By evening time, Kingu, Earth's moon, in fullness the pale light on Earth's it was cast. A lesser light to rule the night, among the celestials gods accounted to be. And it was evening and it was morning, and the fourth day on earth it was, and the fifth day Ningursig, a boat of reeds the fashion commanded. The measure to the marshes to take, the stretch to the swamplands to consider. Ulmask, he who what in the water swarm knows, he who knows the swarms of waters, who of the fowl that fly was understanding. Ulmask as a companion he took, between good and bad to distinguish. To distinguish between good and bad, Emash took Ei. Ei took Ulmash. This is how it should be said, actually. Kinds of waters they swam, kinds of skies give wing. To Ulmash many were unknown, bewildering was their number. Good were their carp, among the bad were their swimming. In Bilulu, the marshland master, Ei summoned. In Kimdu, in charge of the ditch and dike, Ei summoned. To them he gave words, to the marshlands to the barrier, with can breaks, with green reeds, of enclosure to fashion, fish from fish they separate. A trap for the carp that was from net could not escape. They went fishing. A place whose snare no bird that is good for food would escape. Thus the fish and fowl, by the good kind separated, for the he was provided, and the evening was morning, on the fifth day earth it was. On the sixth day, Ei of the orchid creatures took account, Innersug, to the task he assigned, that which creeps and that which on feet walks to distinguish. He gave Innersag the duty of defining all the creatures, separating them from one from another as far as defining. Their kinds Innersug astounded, of the ferocity of the wildness to Ei an account he gave. Ei Kula summoned, to Mashdumu urgent command he gave. By evening time the abodes to be completed, by the fence for protection to be surrounded. The heroes to put a task put their shoulders, bricks on the foundations were quickly laid. With reeds were they roofings made, of cut down trees was the fencing put up. Anzu, a beam that kills from the chariot broke over. It says, a beam that kills, that's the name of it. From the chariot brought over. So we brought over a killer beam. A speaker that words beams. A speaker that beams words. At EA's bows he set up. That's interesting. By evening time, compete with the encampment. For the night therein was heroes gathered. Io and Alalu, Anzu and his doings consider. All that done indeed was good. And it was evening and it was morning in the 6th day. On the 7th day the heroes in their encampment were assembled. To them Ea spoke these words. A hazardous journey we have undertaken. From the Nibiru to the 7th planet a dangerous way was traversed. At Sky we were a success arrived. Much good we attained. An encampment we established. Let this day be the day of rest. The 7th day hereunder, a day of resting always to be. Let this henceforth be the name of Eridu be called. Home of the far away the meaning thereof will be. Let a promise be kept. Let Alulu be Eridu, the commander be declared. The heroes thus assembled, and a unison agreement shouted. Words of the consent Alalu uttered. Then homage to Ea he greatly paid. Let Ea a second name be given, and Adimu, the artful fashioner, let him be called. In unison a hero's agreement announced. And it was the evening, and it was the morning, and the 7th day. Now on the account of the searching of gold begun, and how the plans of Nibiru made to Nibiru's salvation did not provide. After the encampment of Eridu was established and the heroes with food were satisfied, Ea took the task of gold and waters obtaining started. In the chariot the firestones were stirred up, the great cracker was enlivened. That which water sucks from the chariot was extended into the marsh waters that was inserted. Into the vessel of crystals the waters were directed. From the waters of the crystals all the metal in the vessel extracted. Then from the vessel that which spits out the water to this fish pond spat out. Excuse me. Thus were the metals that were in the waters in the vessels collected. Ingenious was Ea's handiwork, an artful fashioner indeed he was. For 6 earth days marsh waters were sucked in, marsh waters were spat out. The vessel's metals indeed were collected, so they filtered the gold out that simply. The metal on the 7th day of Io and Alalu were examined, and many kinds of metals in the vessels. Iron there was, much copper there was, of gold there was no abundance. In the chariot another vessel and the artful handiwork of Nudimud, the metals after their kinds were separated, assured kind by kind they were carried. For 6 days thus the heroes toiled. On the 7th day they rested. For 6 days the crystal vessel filled and emptied. On the 7th day were the metals accounted. There was iron and there was copper, and other metals too. Of the gold the smallest pile was accumulated. In the night times the moon waxed and waned, and the name month did its circuit call. So he called it a month when he noticed the whole moon went by. At month's very start its luminous horn 6 days signified. By its half crown the 7th day it announced, a day the rest it was. At midday by the fullness was the moon distinguished, then it paused to become diminished. When the sun's course was the moon's circuit appearing, the earth's circuit it was its face revealing. Fascinating by the moon's motions was Ea, its attachment as Kinu to Ki he contemplated. What purpose did the attachment serve? What heavenly sign was it given? A month did Ea the moon's circuit call. Month to its circuit he gave the name. For 1 month, for 2 months, in the chariot were the waters separated. The sun every 6 months to earth another season gave. Winter and summer did Ea by names then call. There was winter and there was summer. By year of earth did Ea the full circuit call. By summer's end and accumulated gold account was taken. Much to dispatch to Nibiru there was not. The swampland water was sufficient. Let the chariots to the deeper ocean be moved, so that Ea saying, from the moorings of the chariot united, back whence they came and shifted, where great care was the crystal vessel stirred, the salt waters through them passing, metals by the kinds were separated, gold among them was sparkling. From the chariot to the happening of Io to Nibiru, war began, and here it was pleased indeed. If you were pleased to find gold.